Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Play. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to another video. This week I would like to talk, not play nonetheless, but I would like to talk to you guys about something about this game. This is a game that I enjoy playing a lot. I really do like this game. I enjoy playing this game, and why isn't audio showing up? I don't know. This is very odd. This program I'm using right now, it works when it feels like working, which is quite odd. So, why, I don't know. It just works when it feels like working. Come on, work. Please work. Please work. Work because I tell you it's supposed to work. No, it's not working. Okay. Okay, Houston, we have a problem. I hate modern technology. I surely do. Anyway, I will discuss some stuff with you guys while I'm trying to fix the audio. It's not a big deal. First of all, come on, work. Please. Please, dear God, work. Finally. There we go. I fixed the audio. Anyway, a long time ago, when I first started playing this game, the company that made this game, Piranha, approached me and offered me an opportunity to test a new game. And this was the game right here. The game was in its beta stage. It wasn't its initial stage. It wasn't alpha, or wasn't its first beta. They had the second beta test. This is the beta test before they finalized it. Now, this game, as you see it right now, was kind of what the final product beta tested. It kind of looked similar to the way it looks back then. There's only one thing that was missing. There was a button right here called Solaris 7. Now, if you guys will remember correctly, in the store, they have a Solaris 7 mech pack in the store. You guys have probably seen mechs in my inventory before that resemble some of that. For example, let me show you an example of one of the mechs from the Solaris 7 gift, from the Solaris 7 pack. This one here, that was supposed to be a Solaris 7 mech. This one here was supposed to be a Solaris 7 mech. Well, it actually is, because they actually sell the mech pack. Now, the whole idea was Solaris 7 was something that was created for MechWarrior, not BattleTech. MechWarrior. Now, some of you guys are probably saying to yourself, what the hell does BattleTech have to do with MechWarrior? Well, BattleTech was the original game, was the original role-playing game on books. And they even had FASA Corporation was the first company to create BattleTech. FASA made the first thing they ever made in BattleTech was a long time ago in the late 80s. they made a board game called BattleTech, and it had a big map, size of a table, and had little plastic figures. And I think they had an atlas. They had an atlas, a mad dog. They had a Timberwolf, and they had an Orion. It was a really odd looking Orion. It looked nothing like the one in the game. It was really, really odd looking. It looked nothing like the Orion we have in the game here. It looked like it was taller, but it was skinnier. Actually, I can show you guys the Orion that's in this game. See, the Orion, as we know it right now, looks like this. This is the way it was supposed to be looked. This is the way it was supposed to look like. When Fossil Corporation first picked up the rights, Fossil was the first company to pick up the rights to BattleTech Universe. And the first thing Fossil did was they created a role-playing game. First was on book, where other people would play against other people, or play with other people in book form. That was first. Second, they created what's called a board game, BattleTech, the BattleTech board game. I still have it actually. It's buried somewhere in my bottom of my closet. It is it was a paper map that you lay out on the kitchen table, and it looks like the surface of Mars. It has, gullies and hills and stuff. It's just a paper map. That's it. With squares. They gave you a 6-sided dice, and they gave you a 15 to 20 page booklet, and they gave you a cheat sheet, one cheat sheet. You had to write down on a piece of paper what side you wanted to go on. The rebels, aka the planners, or the Innisphere. Back when Fossil Corporation picked up the BattleTech license, they didn't use the original terminology. They decided to call it something other than, I forgot what they called them. They called them something else. They didn't use the word clanners or clans. Anyway, BattleTech took place pre-Clan Wars anyway. So everyone was under the Star League banner. So technically, when the Star League was around, there was no clans, there was no Innisphere. Everyone resided under the same banner. It wasn't until the Star League disbanded that they started to divide up territory for the great houses. The houses, instead of being united as one, they all separated into their own territories. And they did it without any problems. The only problem is that the people who resided in those territories resisted being separated. You had friends in some clans, friends who were in some Innispheres, and friends who were in other Innispheres. And they didn't like being separated. They wanted to be together. So the clanners came up with an idea of what if we resurrect the Star League? So the clans are fighting. So therefore, the clans are fighting the Inner Spheres because they want to resurrect the Star League, and the Inner Sphere want to leave everything exactly the way it is right now. So who's right? We don't know. What we do know is that the Star League, everybody worked together and everybody was one. I don't really remember why they broke up the Star League in the first place. I don't remember. If you do remember and you do know the story, comment down below, because I honestly can't tell you because I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've read the novels, so I don't remember them, and I don't even own the novels, so I can't even reread them. So, but I read them a long time ago, and I don't remember everything. So, if you do know, I would appreciate if you comment down below, because I would like to know, because I don't really remember everything. It is a shame. It really is. Anyway, the original mechs from the BattleTech universe, some of them were the same, some of them were a lot different. A lot different. The mechs that were created during the Star League were as follows. The Orion, this mech was created for the Star League. Trying to think what else was created for the Star League. I don't think I have anything else. No, I don't. I don't have anything else. Let me go to the store, because there's mechs I don't have that were part of the Star League. That was created by Inner Sphere House. I think this is Inner Sphere House Davion the Flea. The Jenner. The Jenner was a Star League mech. The Jenner, it was one of the oldest mechs in the Star League. It really is. It's one of the oldest mechs in the Star League. Why I don't own this mech is beyond me. But it really was one of the oldest mechs in the Star League. It did its job. Oddly enough, everybody calls it the human garbage truck. But I will tell you this. People make fun of this thing all the time. But this thing, there's a reason why this thing is like this. This was created at the very beginning of House Davion getting their territories back. The first mech House Davion created was this thing. And the reason why this was created was because House Steiner had the Atlas. House Steiner created the Atlas for the Star League. So they had an assault mech in the Star League. So the Atlas was one of the first mechs that the Atlas and the Orion were one of the first mechs that were created in the Star League. An assault and heavy. When the Star League disbanded, the House Steiner got their Atlases back. Everyone that owned an Atlas, and if they did not swear to House Steiner, they were forced to give the mech back. most people joined House Steiner, which is one of the reasons why the map looks the way it does. If you go to the map right here, we're going to show you guys something. Now, there's a reason why House Steiner's area territory looks so big. See that right there? It's huge. When the Star League disbanded, more people fled to House Davion and House Steiner. They were the strongest houses in the Star League. They had the most say on what the Star League did. And they were also the most fair. The other houses were not ran as well. For what I remember, when Free Russell Hog first was created, Free Russell Hog was supposed to be like the United States of America. It was supposed to be a democratic nation. It was supposed to be ruled by the people. But in an environment like this, you can't have a free nation. Because free nations in an environment like this could spell doom. Because instead of talking states, you have planets. You have to understand, this map is not territory. This map is planets. Okay, guys? Let me give you an example. You ready? See this planet right here? This one right here? You know what this is? This, when the Star League, before all the clan wars started, the area where the Star League was created was this planet right here. This was the home of the Star League. So every house the leader of all the great houses had to report to this planet whenever they had to do something. Whenever they had a discrepancy or they had to do something, everybody had to report to this planet. The rulers of all of those houses on the planet Terra. Now, the clans as we know them right now didn't exist. Why? Because they were integrated within the houses. And the houses didn't have separated territories like they do now. They're all integrated within the Star League. So all these different separations in houses and House Marek and House Davion, House Steiner didn't exist. It was just Terra was the capital of the entire universe. All the other planets were ruled by Terra. All the leaders of the great houses would reside on this planet right here. So all the leaders, like Katrina Steiner and at the time, the leader of Davion and all the house leaders would be in Terra. And their individual territories would be integrated within Star League. Therefore, clans didn't need to exist. That is one reason why the clans are fighting the Innisphere. And you're probably playing this game going, this battle's never ending. Why is it always like this? Why are we always fighting each other? Because the clans, after the Star League disbanded, the clan wars lasted for thousands and thousands of years. They never stopped. As far as I know, when the final book of the BattleTech universe came out, they had just begun the clan wars when the final book of the BattleTech universe came out, and that was it. BattleTech was over. The BattleTech storyline is the story of the Star League and what happened in the Star League. MechWarrior is what happened after the Star League disbanded and what happened between the great houses. Now, if they were to create a video game that involved BattleTech, nobody would play it. Nobody but people really into BattleTech would play it. Why? Because nobody fought each other. Nobody had the need to fight each other. This is the main reason why when I beta tested this game, they created Solaris 7. Okay, guys? You guys have probably heard of this before. You guys have probably participated in the one-on-one. You guys have probably heard about this crack or this illegal crack you can add to the game to unlock Solaris 7. There's a reason why it's unlocked. Because Solaris 7 only existed during the time of the Star League. One-on-one competitions only existed during the time of Star League. The reason why is because the mechs that they created never got a chance to see battle because there's so much peace in the world. So they created a friendly competition between the houses, and they would have house banners up. They would have arenas up in each territory with the house's banners and Star League banner next to it. And people would compete in their own territories. Meanwhile, it wouldn't be House Steiner, but it'd be Steiner's territory. And that's the way things worked. That's what Solaris 7 was all about. Solaris 7 was created by the Star League so that this way the pilots, their skills would not wear. They were still building their skills up in case something happened, just in case. And once the clan wars, once they started separating into clans and Star League disbanded, certain people that got involved in Solaris 7 competitions, they didn't want separate houses. They wanted the Star League so they can still have compete against each other one-on-one. They wanted competition. They wanted war. Solaris 7 provided them with that necessary combat that they wanted, that they craved. Well, the fact that the great houses were available now and Star League was disbanded, there was no need for any competition or war. It was gone. Solaris 7 was disbanded, shut down, and there was peace among all the great houses. Well, certain members of the houses didn't like it. Especially, there's one group that didn't like it. One group in particular did not like not having Solaris 7. They were a mercenary group. Now, the mercenary group in particular The purpose of said mercenary group was to be there in case. Well, they were supposed to be there in case they were needed. And obviously, they really weren't that needed. But they did enjoy the competition amongst all the rest of them. The competition amongst all the rest of them, they did appreciate. Let's see, I think it's under clans. Let's see, where is it? Where are you? Yes, I could do that. Yes, I could do that. Where is the Wolf Dragoon? Where is the Wolf Dragoon? Okay. Now, you're probably wondering why we have a vulture. And why this vulture says Archer Clan. Okay, guys? See that? The Archer does not say 2C. You want to know why? This Archer was one of the mechs as part of the mercenary squad, the Wolf Dragoons mercenary squad. Wolf Dragoons mercenary squad was created during the Star League, and the purpose of that mercenary squad was one mech from each zone or house. At the time, it was like more like a territory. Would donate one mech to one mercenary squad, and that mercenary squad would jump back and forth between one house and another, keeping the peace, so to speak. Territories that were not allowed to have armies during time of Star League. So a mercenary squad had to be an area, a territory had to be allotted for a squad of mercenaries. And the mechs that we used were mechs that were created during time of Star League. And the Vulture, the Flea, and actually quite a bit of them. The Summoner. Summoner was a clan mech made by Clan Wolf. But it was also made during the Star League by, at the time, the territory that Clan Wolf held in the Star League. I believe Clan Wolf was residing in Steiner's territory at the time. So, when Clan Wolf made the Summoner, they really, really wanted to keep the Star League going, because Star League had parts and stuff available for these mechs that were not available anywhere else. For example, Archer. This one right here. This is an Innisphere mech. Why it says Clan and not 2C was because this is a mercenary mech from the Wolf Dragoons mercenary squad. This is not a clan. This is not a stolen clan mech. This is an Innisphere mech made and maintained by the Innisphere for the mercenary squad. So this is not stolen territory. This is a real Innisphere mech. When Star League disbanded, Wolf Dragoons mercenary squad disbanded with them. And each person in the Wolf Dragoons decided to move either over to the Innisphere or to the clans. A good majority of them moved over to the clans. I believe anyone that had decided to keep, anyone that used the atlases decided to move over to House Span. I believe the only Wolf Dragoon squads that moved over the Great Houses were the ones piloting the atlases, because they knew if something happened to those mechs, they would never be able to fix them. So they decided to not revolt and move over to the houses. All the rest of them kept the mechs, moved over to the new clans, and the Wolf Dragoons, instead of being disbanded, they kept going. Except they were now a full-blown mercenary squad, jumping back and forth between the Innisphere and the planets. The only difference is that after the Star League, the clans were forced to use these Innisphere mechs in service for the clans. Because down the road, little by little, clan technology started. They had to create clan technology based on what they had there. So you have to understand, a lot of the clan mechs you see right now are based off of this mercenary squad's mechs. For example, this is the Star League Wolf Dragoon mech. Okay, this is also House Davion's Vulture. When Clan Wolf decided to make a mech, they made a mech that looked a little bit like the Vulture. They called it the Mad Dog. This is Clan Wolf's version of the Vulture. The Mad Dog was created based off of the Vulture. The reason why it's not a 2C model is because when the Wolf Dragoons existed during the time of Star League, they were able to draw up ideas and able to draw up their own blueprints for a mech based off of what they're seeing right there. So when they separated, they were able to make their own mechs very easily. Just because they were able to see and work and use these Innisphere mechs, they knew exactly how they worked. So they made what they claim is a better version of this mech. Yes, there are things that are better, but this mech has more weaknesses than the Vulture does. 10 times more weaknesses than the Vulture does. Why? Because the clanners did not have the technology to build exactly this, even though they knew how to build it. The clanners did not have the technology to build this mech. They could not build a Vulture. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't. So a 2C version could not be created because even though they had one in their they were touching a working industry mech, they could not replicate the technology. They were unable to replicate it. Because they were unable to replicate this technology, they were forced to create their own version of it. So when the clan separated, Clan Wolf decided to create the Mad Dog in response. So the Mad Dog was created as their own version of the Vulture. Now, it was not a 2C. In other words, it wasn't an exact copy. There weren't. A 2C model is a model that's copied from, it's an exact copy of a mech, but using clan technology. For example, Urban Mech. This was the most common mech to copy because these mechs were used during the Star League times to help guard the important areas, like Star League territories, or maybe the territory of the factions, or guard bases or something like that. These things were placed out as guards. That's it. They did not battle anybody. The purpose of these guys was just to sit there and guard the territory. That's the reason why they had these really big cockpit windows here. Gigantic cockpit windows. That's why you didn't have a lot of armor. And the reason why it was so slow was because it didn't need to be fast. Because all it had to do was patrol. The purpose of this mech was simply to patrol, observe, and that's it. Now, House Davion used the Urban Mech for a completely different thing. House Davion, they used the Urban Mech toward their police force, which is pretty much what they used it for, which is this. This is the reason why House Davion created the Urban Mech in the first place. They created it as a guard. Okay, we're gonna need you to guard this area, or we're gonna need you to close off this street. Fine. Send this guy out. He's small enough, he won't break anything, that's fine. Speed, we don't need speed. Don't need it. All he's doing is guarding things. So, that's fine. So, this was the purpose of the Urban Mech. That's the reason why it's so slow. That's the reason why it's so slow. And the reason why it looks like this is because it didn't need to look like anything scary. It just needed to do its job. And only its job. And its job was to stand guard. Now, toward the middle part of the Clan Wars, I would have to say after Star League was long gone, if I remember correctly, middle part through the Clan Wars, they started realizing that maybe these things can be used for battle. So they started to create different versions of the Urban Mech. And there were a lot of different versions. I mean, a lot. They started creating ones where they started creating ones that were faster. They actually had a little speed to them. They started creating ones with more lasers. They started creating different versions of it. For example, I can show you guys a really good one. This is one variation that came out. It had all lasers. Now, you would probably think those are small lasers, right? there's a lot of lasers on that thing. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 lasers on that small Earth mech. You're probably telling me those small lasers. Oh no, let's find out. This is stock, by the way. The only thing I changed was the paint job. That's it. This is a stock. This is stock. Yes, these are small lasers, but they're small extra pulse lasers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 plus a flamer equals 8. That's insane. You could have up to 8 lasers on this thing. Why does the flamer in the middle? I don't know. The small lasers generate less heat. I do know that. Now, having a mech this size, every time you generate heat, that heat builds up quicker. For example, if you have an Atlas, a 100-ton Atlas, the heat builds up slower because the chassis is big. So there's more chassis to have heat stored in. But you see, every time you have open spaces like this, that's more places for the heat to build up in. If you fill every ounce of this area with this gray matter right here, heat has no place to go. That's where heat sinks come in. When the weapon generates heat, the heat has to go somewhere. So instead of going in the engine, or in the cockpit, it goes in the heat sinks. Your heat sinks are meant to absorb heat. And then when it's filled up, it ejects the heat out into the environment. That's what heat sinks are for. Now, the more heat you generate, the more heat sinks you'll need. Now remember, things that generate heat have to have heat sinks next to them. Lasers generate heat, so you have to have heat sinks in the same place where the lasers are. It's always good practice to do that. Now, I have 3 small lasers right here. I have 3 heat sinks over here. Why did I do that? The reason why is because there is nothing in this torso. Now, even though these are completely separate, the heat generating and building up in this arm is going to go here, in these 3 open slots right here. Those dynamic structure slots, after the heat has built up too much, it will spill over into this. And the heat sinks will start to take the heat in, and little by little, now the heat always built up in that one arm. When the mech shuts down, those are the heat sinks. The reason why a mech shuts down is because all the heat building up in the heat sinks ejects itself. The entire mech ejects all the heat out of it. That's why when a mech wants to shut down, let it. Do not override, let it. Because a mech shuts down because all the heat that heat sinks are absorbing in cannot eject itself unless the mech is shut off. So having double heat sinks they're going to absorb more heat. That's good. They also take up more space. So the idea is to have more heat sinks than you need, because God forbid something happens and it says if your mech is forced to shut down, do not override it. Let the mech shut down on its own. The reason why is because if the mech shuts down on its own, all the heat that's built up in that mech automatically ejects itself into the environment. When the mech is fully purged, it will turn itself back on. You have to understand, these things are all here for a reason. These heat sinks are not here to look nice. Those heat sinks are there to do a job. They create very tiny vents leading to the outside. When too much heat built up in the heat sink, it automatically ejects it. It ejects the heat out of the mech. After the mech shuts down, it ejects all the heat out of that heat sink before it gets to the cockpit or the engine. If the heat built up in the cockpit or the engine, the mech could explode. Yes, you're hearing me right. The mech could explode. Standard engines are less vulnerable to explosions than XL engines. XL engines are more vulnerable to explosions. And I'll tell you why. Because XL engines require space in the torso. See that? This space is reserved for an XL engine. So the heat goes from here to here, which means that all your heat sinks have to be where the engine is. Always, here's a tip. If you have an XL engine, always make sure you put your heat sinks in your torsos first. You need to keep these side pieces cool as a cucumber, because if you don't, the mech will overheat twice as quick. Heat sinks, keeping the engine cool is your number one priority, because if you don't, the mech will explode. Dead serious, the mech will explode. If you ever push the override button, if you ever overwrite the shutdown sequence, you go too far, engine blows up, takes you with it, and you're gone. I don't know if they do it in the game, but in reality, you're supposed to be gone. If the engine overheats, the engines in these mechs are supposed to be nuclear reactors. Can you imagine a nuclear reactor overheating? Can you imagine what that might look like? Yeah, you have a nuclear reactor strapped to your mech. What do you think is going to happen? Exactly. Hence the reason why there has to be lots and lots of cooling. So if you have all lasers in here, make sure you have heat sinks, more heat sinks than you need. And for the love of Christ, never, ever, ever, ever overwrite the shutdown sequence unless you're in a bad place. If they're shooting at you constantly, overwrite and get the hell out of there. Do not shoot anything, don't touch anything, just get the hell out. Call for help, get the hell out of there. Don't make it worse. Find a place to hide. Wait for it to cool down on its own. If you overwrite the shutdown sequence and you explode, you're in big trouble. Do not do that, ever. I'm warning you. Take it from somebody that knows the BattleTech universe. These mechs do not like these mechs are not supposed to like being overwritten. Every time you overwrite the shutdown sequence, you run the risk of that engine you have right there exploding and taking you with it. Don't forget, the pilot is right here. A nuclear reactor is sitting right below you. Hello? Let's say you push overwrite, okay? Overwriting the engine. Let's say you say, screw you, I'm doing the hell I want. You're going to push it. You push it too much, it explodes. This overheats. This thing explodes, and the entire mech explodes and takes you with it. You didn't even get a chance to eject. It just blew up before you even get a chance to eject. This is not something to joke around with. This is something serious. There's a reason why the mech shuts down when it overheats. The reason being is because if it shuts down, it gives you a chance. It gives the mech a chance to cool down enough so that you can. It gives the chance to mech a chance to cool down enough so that you can get the hell out of the dangerous situation, find a safe place, and allow it to cool down on its own, providing you provide enough heat sinks for it to do so. If you didn't, then, well, it's never going to cool down. A mech will only cool down if you have heat sinks in it. And you have to have enough heat sinks to cover. Now, in the game, I can suggest how much heat sinks to put in. All you do is look in the bottom here. It says double heat sinks with engine. There's 7 heat sinks. 1 heat sink is in the engine. Okay? So there's 1 heat sink in the engine. The reason why is when the mech shuts down, when you overheat and the mech goes in shutdown sequence, the heat sink any heat sinks you have in the engine automatically kick in. Now, I want you to picture this. Heat sinks that are in the mech itself are going to work for the mech only. Now, if the engine starts overheating, the heat sinks that are in the engine will cool down only the engine. Okay? So you have to make sure you pay attention to this. If you don't, then you're screwed. Because I have 6 heat sinks in this mech and 7 heat sinks in total, which means I have 1 heat sink in that engine. So that engine only has 1 double heat sink. So now, if for example, if I did push overwrite, because I have only 1 double heat sink in an engine, I can get away with overwriting that. Because the engine will have the ability to dissipate some heat. Not a lot, but some heat. Because 1 double heat sink is in that engine. So the engine has the capabilities of dissipating heat. Not a lot, but it has some. Which is not bad. It's really honestly not that bad. Think of it this way. This mech right now, the way it stands right now, the thing that generates the most heat out of this entire mech is going to be this flamer. Flamers generate more heat than lasers do. Now, standard lasers generate a large laser, a regular, your large laser from Innisphere generates the most heat out of all the lasers. And your large laser generates a tremendous amount of heat. But it has a longer range and it hits a hell of a lot harder. A regular large laser has high heat, not as high as an ER. And of course, so on and so forth, and it goes down the ranks as you go along. Now, the pulse lasers. A pulse laser is a laser that it is not steady. It doesn't go out and stay out. It shoots real quick. It's a quick pulse. It's like it fires and then goes away. Fires and then goes away. That quick firing generates less heat. Because the only reason why lasers are such heat magnets is because of the length of time that laser has to generate and go out. As long as that laser is firing, it's generating heat inside your mech. So, the less time that laser spends out of your mech, the less heat your mech generates. So naturally, it's better to have pulse lasers than it is to have regular lasers. Regular lasers are going to naturally cooler. They're going to generate less heat. So if you have a mech that overheats a lot, consider putting in pulse lasers. Pulse lasers are a lot easier to keep cooler than regular standard lasers. And they're a hell of a lot better than ER lasers. ER lasers are a nightmare to keep cool. They are an absolute nightmare. Flamers, these things, you would think that these are great for getting rid of heat. Why? Because you could use heat generating inside the mech to ignite the flames. Makes sense? That's not the way the flamers work. These flamers are like the flamers in Vietnam. They spit gasoline out and they hook a flame up to the gasoline and they fling it out. This does not generate heat per se. And it ignites a flame and spits the flame out. This throws a propellant out and ignites a propellant. This is kind of like the days when in Vietnam, when they had those flamethrowers in Vietnam, where they threw the gasoline and ignited the gasoline on fire. Those are the flamers. That's what these are. Those flamers will do some serious damage to any machines you come across. Although it is generating heat inside your mech a lot, it generates 3 times as much heat in the enemy's mech. As long as you have enough double heat sinks, your mech won't even feel using this. And I have it right next to the engine. The reason why this is okay is because I have 1 heat sink in the engine. See that? I have 7 heat sinks in total, which means 1 heat sink is in this engine. So, automatically. So I figured if I use the flamer, if I, God forbid, use the flamer, the heat sink in the engine will keep the flamer at an okay level. As long as I don't use the flamer too much, it should be okay. So, instead of adding a standard heatsink for here, instead of having only single heat sinks and putting a lot in, I had double heat sinks and just put in a beagle active probe here and put a flamer. What I could have done was I could have put a double heat sink here. But again, why should I put a double heat sink here when there already is a heat sink in the engine? See that? Because there's a heat sink in here, I don't need another one here. So we put the flamer here, whether I use it or not, it doesn't matter. It's a spare weapon I might never use. So that's fine. If I don't use it, fine. If I do use it, that's great. And because this mech is a light mech, an advanced sensor package does make sense. Now, because aeromechs are supposed to be really slow, and the reason why they're slow is because they have standard 60 engines in them. They have, I'll show you the engines they comes with stock. Now, this is the engine that it comes with stock. Now, for light mech, it does make sense having such a small engine, especially a mech that's made for only patrolling, and a mech that was built for patrolling and for guarding territories. Having such a small engine does make sense. But if you're using this mech for combat, you want to make sure it has more armor, more weaponry, more heat sinks, more of everything. Such a small frame. How are you going to fit all this extra shit in such a small frame? You have to really think about this. There's ways around things. Now, a mech is made out of steel, correct? Now, what if you were to make the structure of the mech into a substance that's lighter than steel? For example, if you made let's say you made a mech out of like titanium. Titanium is lighter than steel. It's stronger than steel. It's lighter than steel. Let's say you use titanium, okay? Endosteel is basically like having titanium. So for this, as you can see right here, the way I have it situated right here, I have a lighter and stronger structure. But by doing this, all these slots right here are reserved for the endosteel structure, which means you cannot use. This is your shoulder actuator. This is your upper arm actuator. All these are the endosteel structure. Because these are placed here, give you more to make the mech's structure lighter and stronger, to allow you to take more tonnage with you. That allowed me to take an extra heatsink. If I had a standard structure, I would have one, maybe two less double heatsinks in this mech. Because I took an endosteel structure, I was able to squeeze in two more double heatsinks, allowing this mech to stay alive all that much longer. A lot of this sounds like gobbledygook, and some of it probably like is going over your head. But I hope some of it makes any sense. A lot of these mechs, the way Piranha made this video game, not all that much different than the BattleTech universe. Because if MechWarrior is during the Clan Wars. MechWarrior takes place during Clan Wars. BattleTech takes place during Star League times. MechWarrior is after. MechWarrior is during the times of the clans, and Star League is when you have the clans integrated within Innisphere. So Star League is BattleTech. Clans versus Innisphere is MechWarrior. There's a big difference, but the two are the same storyline. They integrate the same storyline. The only difference is that Star League was here. When the Star League ended, a new era began. Old ties were cut. And you know, certain people separated. Certain people didn't like the way things were going. So territories, houses were given their old territories back. But clans didn't exist. People within the Star League were like, wait a minute, we're separating into houses? We're supposed to be one team. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. You know what? We're going to separate. We're going to separate from you, all you guys. We're done. We are part of Star League. If you don't wish to be part of Star League, well, we're going to form our own alliance. So the clans formed their own alliance in another star system, which is right here. Now, in this star system right here are the great houses. Now, the clans want to bring they want to bring back the original Star League. The only way the clans are going to win and bring Star League back is if they take over every single territory. If they take over all this territory, that means that they can take over. If they take over all these territories, that means they'll automatically take over this. And if they can take this over, then they can bring Star League back. And that's the only way they can bring Star League back. This is why the clans are fighting. They're not fighting for territory, they're fighting to get that back. That is the capital of Star League. So, all the nations would send all their leaders here to Terra. So all of them would consult each other and, you know, decide what they were going to do next and stuff like that. And the Solaris 7 tournaments, the one-on-one tournaments that they used to have during the time of Star League, that was held on planet Terra. The one-on-one tournaments were held on this planet. when they were held during the time of the Star Leagues. During the time of the Star Leagues. This is all very complicated and frustrating. But trust me, I do promise you, a lot of this does make sense. If you do follow BattleTech like I do, this makes a lot of sense. If you don't, then I urge you to start reading the BattleTech books. The novels. Fossa created novels a very long time ago, back in the late 70s, early 80s. Fossa made novels called BattleTech. And in the very late 80s, early 90s, they made a board game called BattleTech. And the board game became very popular. It came with a map with little figures, little plastic figures about that big, with some mechs on it, like the Orions and stuff like that, and And the whole objective was you had to take over territories. Well, you have to understand, when Fossa made the board game, they kind of opened up a can of worms. Because later on, they created a BattleTech role-playing game. And they made something called BattleTech in the role-playing game with the books. Fossa made something called Clan Wars. Now, during BattleTech time, there was no clans. So nobody knew what the hell they were talking about. It wasn't until early 90s that Fossa decided to take BattleTech to a turn and decided to have the BattleTech books separate and turned it into MechWarrior. And when video games started getting popular, the very first video game, I think, the very first popular video game was for the original Sony PlayStation, and it was, I think the original Sony PlayStation version. I still have it. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Fossa Corporation made a game for the original Sony PlayStation called MechWarrior. There was a very first game with a paper, book, or anything to have the name MechWarrior. MechWarrior was never ever used ever in the BattleTech universe. Fossa introduced it as a way of saying that the Star League, because Fossa did not continue with the novels. They assumed that through the video games you'll follow the storyline through the video games. That's what they hoped. So you had the video game for the PlayStation, the original Sony PlayStation. Sorry about this, guys. I'm getting all over the place. Anyway, you had stuff. For example, the original Sony PlayStation game was called MechWarrior. Now, there was no inner sphere and there was no clan, but there was clan and inner sphere mechs. you have to understand when that game from the Sony PlayStation came out, BattleTech stopped making books. So this was Foster's first opportunity to change the BattleTech universe for good. And finally put both Innisphere and finally make clans and Innisphere and put them at war with each other. And war sells. War makes money. Although the BattleTech was very popular for decades through role-playing games and stuff like that, but to make a BattleTech video game, nobody would play it unless the video game was a role-playing game. Nobody would play it. Now, if somebody made a BattleTech video game, everybody would play it. Because BattleTech was really a lot of fun. It really was. But I don't know if they ever made a BattleTech video game. I don't even know if they made it in DOS. I just don't know. I do know that they did make role-playing game on paper. You know, with the books and the figures and stuff like that, and all the pieces of paper and the dice rolls and stuff like that. I do know that they did make BattleTech role-play games with the books. And the board game can be used. Foster made the board game. People were using the board game with the role-play game on books. People were not playing the board game for what it was. People were using the board game for the book role-playing game. So anybody that owns the BattleTech board game, it's worth a lot of money. A lot. Because if you have original BattleTech role-play games, those role-play games will work with that board game perfectly. They don't tell you to use it, but it works perfectly because every single mech that's in that board game is in the role-play game. So in reality, that board game is supposed to work with the original role-play games on books. So if you own both of those, use them together and they'll work perfect. But the board game is the hardest one to find. I have it. I don't have the books. The board game is next to impossible to find, especially in One Piece. Because all the mechs with this very delicate plastic. And if one part broke, the entire thing was ruined. Luckily for me, I kept mine in pristine condition. Hoping one day I would pick the roleplay books up, but I couldn't find them. Looked everywhere, couldn't find them. Anyway, then Microsoft started to come out. Microsoft got in contact with FASA, and they came out with roleplay games. And Microsoft came out with 2 games for the PC for Windows XP. They came out with MechWarrior Vengeance and MechWarrior Black Knight Expansion Pack, and another one called MechWarrior Black Moon Expansion Pack. You were able to use those three games for Windows XP. Those are the very first MechWarrior themed anything ever created. Microsoft bought out the rights to the BattleTech universe from FASA, and they started the MechWarrior franchise. because they did not want to use the BattleTech universe because they wanted to create something different. They didn't want to use the BattleTech universe. They wanted to create war. The best way to create war is to put one against another one. Now, in BattleTech, there was no war. It was just skirmishes here and there, light skirmishes. Now, in this game, this is just all-out warfare. I mean, this is like, okay, we're trying to take you over. We're trying to take you over. The clans are trying to take over everywhere. You've got clans taking over this territory. You got Innisphere members. You got Innisphere clan, Innisphere areas constantly taking over, constantly trying to retake territories like crazy. For example, House Davion took this territory right here. Back from the clan, the clanners took the entire territory right here. House Davion retook this area right here. I can never remember the name of this goddamn clan. The name of this goddamn Innisphere. This Innisphere right here, house, this was not one of the originals. This was something that they created only for MechWarrior. In reality, the only houses that existed in the original BattleTech / MechWarrior franchise were House Steiner, House Davion, Free Rasselhag, and House Merrick. This one and this one were created later on. Those two houses were created later on. All the rest of them were part of the universe. They're part of the universe. They're part of the BattleTech universe. These two were not. So these were created later on to give it more of a variety. So all the mechs from the Innisphere were created by all these houses. These two did not create any mechs at all because these two houses did not exist in the original BattleTech universe. The only mechs that created are the mechs that whoever decided to continue writing the story of MechWarrior. And like for example, like mechs you see in this game, sometimes you'll see mechs that never existed in the original games. I can't go by the mechs I have because I have all the original BattleTech mechs. Even this, the Cyclops was an original BattleTech mech. It was made later on, but yes, it was made. And of course, the Banshee, that was definitely a Starlink mech. The Banshee was a Starlink mech. The reason why it was a Starlink mech was because it was made for one-on-one combat. This mech was supposed to be made for one-on-one combat. They had guns on one arm and a melee weapon on the other. And what it would do is it would just go try to beat the crap out of each other. And then cut them open with a melee weapon or whatever. I mean, of course, in the game, this is fake. This doesn't work. It's just a show. But during the time of Star Leagues, they created mechs they were only used for one-on-one combat, and the Banshee was one of them. The Banshee was not created by anybody but the Star League. So therefore, when the Star League disbanded, any mechs that were created by the Star League in general all got divvied up amongst the houses. Unless if that specific house or in that specific territory created that mech, it became that house's mech. For example, the Atlas, Katrina Steiner created the Atlas. Therefore, House Steiner took this mech for themselves. Why? Because Katrina Steiner created this mech. Katrina Steiner created this mech. Therefore, this became House Steiner's mech. The Vulture. The Vulture was created by Davion. So therefore, because the Vulture was created by Davion during the times of the during the time of Star League, when they disbanded, the Vulture was given to House Davion because the Davion territories created it. So they gave it to House Davion. The Star League divvied out all the mechs that were created by that territory, and that can still create that mech today in that territory, and they gave it to them. All the rest were disbanded or shut down or gotten rid of. And the Banshee was one of them. The Banshee was a mech that was created by 3 different houses. It was created only for Star League 101 tournaments. That is the reason why the Banshee exists primarily in Slayer 7 mech pack in this game, was because the Banshee was not part of any one of the houses. The Banshee was actually only meant for one-on-one combat. There was different variations and different variants of the Banshee. Yes, there was. There's plenty of variants with the Banshee. But the thing is, it was never created by one specific clan. It was never created by one specific house or territory. Ideas were spread around from territory to territory about parts for a mech. Said, okay, we'll make the head, you guys make the core, you guys make the legs, we'll make the arms. Okay, we'll make that, we'll use that for the competitions. How about that? That sounds good, let's do that. So each of the territories would make one piece. And when Star League disbanded, any mechs that can be created only by that one house only got to keep the mech for that house. Not realizing that the houses were going to end up working together down the road. They figured the houses were going to. They figured when Star League disbanded, the houses were going to separate, and they're all going to be fighting each other. They had no idea that the clans would even exist at the time. And then the Wolf Dragoons mercenary squad started realizing a change in the way things are run. They started realizing that certain things are not really looking so good. So the Wolf Dragoons, being part of the inner sphere for so long, being part of Star League and now being part of the inner sphere, so long, they started to realize that the houses are growing apart, little by little. And they're starting to argue. Instead of working together, they're arguing. So they're starting to see that they're not getting along as well as they used to. Now they're starting to realize that some of them are leaving the houses and taking technology with them. Why? I don't know. All of a sudden, clans are being created. You had Clan Jade Falcon and Clan Wolf were the first clans to be created. Jade Falcon and Clan Wolf were the first two clans to be created after the fall of the Star League. When those two clans were created, the Wolf Dragoons immediately left the inner sphere and moved over to Clan Wolf, and they became part of Clan Wolf. Why? Because the Wolf Dragoons actually, even though the Wolf Dragoons Mercenary Squad was created by House Davion, because the majority of their mechs are from House Davion. They were trained by Davion troops, and two of their mechs are House Davions. But one of their mechs was a very important mech, and it was Katrina Steiner's mech. So they had a lot of respect for Davion, they had a lot of respect for House Steiner. So even though they decided to move over to clans, they decided to say, hey, you know what? I think we're going to do mercenaries. I think we're going to stay mercenaries. I don't think we're going to move strictly over to clans. I think we're going to stay mercenaries. And that's why you see mercenaries in this game and all the previous games and this game today. Because of the Wolf Dragoons Mercenary Squad that was created during the Star League. That is the reason why mercenaries exist in this game right now, is because of them. Because they needed mercenaries. They needed mercenaries to exist during the time of Star League, because obviously all of the territories were not allowed to pick up arms against each other. They were not permitted. They were allowed to create weapons, yes, but they were not allowed to create armies to pilot those weapons. So they could create weapons and people could pilot them and compete in Solaris 7 one-on-one for sport. So these mechs right here were created as, during Thomas Star League, they were created for sporting events that were held in Terra at Solaris 7 battlegrounds for one-on-one events or team events. So that's pretty cool. It was kind of like for fun, for sport. Give the people something to cheer for. It makes sense. You're making these things, may as well use them. So, mechs were created for sport. For example, the Banshee was one of the mechs that were created for the wars. Now, during the time of the Star League, there was one mech that was created mainly for exploration, or for patrolling. Now, House Davion created the Urban Mech to guard, mainly to stand guard. It's like kind of like guards, you know. That's the reason why they're so slow. Because the only thing an urban mech is meant to do is to stand there and guard that one territory. Somebody gets past them, take them down. They're small enough where they can be put in urban areas and not disturb anyone. That's the idea behind them. That and the flea. The flea was created because it's small enough to go in urban areas and not disturb anyone or break anything. The big ones were created mainly for war. And the big ones were also created for patrolling. For example, the Bushwhacker, that was created during the tail end of Star League. House Davion wanted a mech that was mainly meant for patrolling and nothing more. They could not use their urban mech because the urban mech was too slow, which we all know that. We call it the slow moving garbage can for a reason. Everybody calls it the trash can, and it's slow, dog ass slow. But that's what we love about it. It's slow, it's fun, we make jokes about it, awesome. But House Davion had the Vulture. Yes, they created the Vulture. The Vulture was made for missiles only. Yes, it can hold lasers and guns. It had ports for guns and lasers, etc. It was mainly meant for missiles only. That's what it was made for. They wanted all-purpose mech. So House Davion created a mech that can do everything. They created the Bushwhacker. This mech was meant to do just about everything. They put all the controls and all the sensors up here. Heat sinks up here. They had the ammunition weapons here. Your lasers here, here, and here. And your missiles right here. It made sense. Everything was where it's supposed to be. And the mech was wicked. The Bushwhacker with the right engine in it can be pretty fast. It's a pretty fast mech. And it doesn't have a lot of armor because it's fast. You can put a lot, you can dump a lot of armor on, also risking taking less weapons. But if you want a fast mech, the Bushwhacker is a good choice in the sphere. So the Bushwhacker was one of the older mechs from the original, one of the original mechs created by House Davion. It was meant to patrol House Davion's territory to make sure everything was in order and everybody was okay. If something was wrong, it immediately report and send in the big guns and the big. Later on, Katrina Steiner would make the enforcers. I believe Katrina Steiner had the Atlases for decades, but they required something a little smaller. So I believe Katrina Steiner decided to make the enforcers. Although the enforcers look similar to the Atlas. They're small. I'd say this is a medium-sized mech. Damage Assault, it's a medium-sized mech. This is equal to the Bushwhacker. So they needed something that was faster, something that could do patrols at okay speed. Something that didn't have a lot of weapons on it. So the Enforcer was made for Hal Steiner. Now you're seeing a trend with Hal Steiner. So Hal Steiner's mechs are becoming more and more human-like. You have the Atlas, which looks like a big human, and the Force, which looks like a big human. I mean, House Davion creates a mech that looks like a trash can. Yeah, that's a thing. And there's another mech which looks like God knows what, but it's one of the best damn mechs in the game. This mech, who the hell knows what this thing looks like, but it works. This is one of the best, if you were to play this game right now, this would be one of the best damn mechs in this game. I'm telling you right now. If you situate this mech just right, this will be one of your favorite mechs, I guarantee you. This is one of my favorite mechs. Not this variant, but this mech in particular. The variant all depends on your playing style. Now, don't forget, Inner Sphere and Clan mechs are much different. Much different. Clan mechs have different rules and regulations. Clan mechs, anything goes. Inner Sphere mechs, there's certain things you can and cannot do. For example, clan mechs. Clans are a little bit more pliable. Now with the clan mech, not these ones that were not 2C mechs, not clan mechs, but the original mechs that are built by the clans. For example, the Kid Fox. Kid Fox was created by Clan Wolf during the tail end of the Star League. The Kid Fox was created during the time of the Star League, but not one of the houses claimed it. No one wanted it. So one person in particular said, "I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take whatever you have. I'll use it. I'll use it for farming and something like that." So a lot of the mechs that around the houses wanted, the clans took for themselves. For example, Kid Foxes, Shadow Cats, Novas. A lot of them, the houses, the great houses, did not want them. They didn't want them. They had no need for them because they already had mechs that they were using already. So why should they use those old relics when they can make new ones? So the clans took the old Star League mechs that the Inner Sphere didn't want, and when the clans were created, they divvied those mechs up into different zones and sent them out. Considering the Novas, the Kid Fox, the Shadow Cats, Summoners, all these were created during the time of Star League. All these mechs are pre-MechWarrior. This Atlas was a Star League mech. Summoner was a Star League mech. Shadow Cat was a Star League mech. Kid Fox was a Star League mech. Nova, that was a Star League mech. The Vulture was a Star League mech. A lot of the original Star League mechs, the Inner Sphere didn't want them because they wanted to make something new. So a lot of the really old mechs, they gave a lot of the really old Star League mechs away for nothing. They just gave them away to whoever wanted them. So people that want to start, people eventually, when they started devising a plan to make the clans, they started building up and gathering as many of these old Star League mechs as they could. And they put them on distant planets. Eventually, at all these houses were getting rid of all these old Star League mechs. All these Novas, Shadow Cats, and all the stuff. Now these are all stuff that they can make parts for because they're old. And all these old mechs that they now have the ability to make parts for and make new ones. Well, they can start building an army with these things. And eventually down the road, they got the Wolf Dragoons on their side. And they were able to get their hands on these things. And they were able to they're able to take these and reverse technology them and create the Mad Dogs. That's how the Mad Dogs were created, because they took apart the Vulture from the Wolf Dragoon Mercenary Squad, and they reverse technologied it, and they used their own technology to make the Mad Dog. They made it based off the technology that they received from the Vulture. Now, the Night Star and the Stalker, I don't remember what house made those, but those are both Innisphere mechs. The Night Star and the Stalker. The Night Star was created by a house, and I don't remember which house. I do know the Night Star was created during the time of Star League, but I don't remember what area. In other words, what house, what area it was created in. I don't remember. I don't remember. If you do know, please comment down below, because I am actually quite curious myself. I don't really remember. I do know the Stalker was created. Now, the Stalker was where they got the idea. The Stalker, this mech right here, one of the clans got the idea to make. I don't own that mech in particular, so I'm going to show you guys what the mech looks like in the store. I don't own this mech. I don't remember the name of it. I don't own it. I really should own this mech, because this is probably one of the most important clan mechs you could ever see in your entire life. This was one of the first clan mechs ever created. Actual only. This is the first clan only mech created. This wasn't taken from the Star League. This wasn't created. This wasn't a 2C mech. This wasn't stolen from Innisphere. This was created specifically by a clan only for that clan. And where the hell is it? It's the original one, not. Either the original Mad Cat, not the Mark II, the original Mad Cat, or the Timberwolf. I think it was a Timberwolf. I think the Timberwolf in particular was one of the actual original ones. God damn it, I really don't remember. I also can't find it. Holy crap. Commando, no, that's... I think it was Timberwolf. I think one of the original, the first ever clan mechs was created only by clan members only. The first ever created clan mech was the Timberwolf. And I don't think they even have the Timberwolf. They should. In this game they should. The Timberwolf was the first mech that was created by a clan. Clan Wolf created the Timberwolf. Clan Wolf created the Timberwolf based off of the Stalker design. Based off of the Wolf Dragoon's Stalker model. They took the Wolf Dragoon Stalker model and added more stuff to it. They were able to very easily duplicate the same thing. Now, they don't seem to have the original one here. They do have the big guy, which is not really what I'm looking for. Now, there was a mech made by Clan Wolf when Clan Wolf first was created as a clan. It was called the Timberwolf. The Timberwolf looked like this. They took the original Wolf Dragoons mercenary mech, the Stalker, and what they did was they added 2 long arms that snaked down and put 2 weapons in the arms. 2 big long stretched arms. Instead of the Mad Cat Mark II has weapon arms. But the Timberwolf had long stretched arms that went down and out. And they had weapons in each arm. And they had missiles on the shoulders. And they had the body and legs of a Stalker. Okay, guys? They duplicated a Stalker, added more glass for the windows up here. They used a Stalker chassis, a Stalker legs, added long arms and larger weapon pods, missile pods for the shoulders, and they called it a Timberwolf. So Clan Wolf's first ever mech that they created was a Timberwolf, which unfortunately this game does not, I don't see this game having. The closest thing to it would be the Mad Cat Mark II, which is the upgrade for this, which is the upgraded Timberwolf. I don't think it was called the Timberwolf Mark II. All I know is the original name was the Timberwolf. That was the original name for the mech. The mech had, instead of having weapon arms like this has, the Mad Cat Mark II, right there, it had arms that went out, down, and forward. So they went out, down, and forward. The arms stretched out like this. And they either had guns or lasers on the arms. That's it. Guns or lasers on the arms. Ammo was stored in the back. All ammo stored in the back of these mechs. All guns were thrusted up front. On clan mechs, it was typical in the beginning for them to store ammo in the rear. Because clanners would always go head first in the battle, so they would never expose their rear end. because all sensitive components were stored in the rear. Unlike the Innisphere that stores all sensitive components in the core. So if you were to take an original clan mech, not a Star League mech, but a clan mech, old clan mechs like Timberwolves and stuff like that, you hit them in the rear, you'll hit sensitive spots, and the mech will just either stop, shut down, or just go and just blow up. Because there's no armor back here. This is all sensitive. This is all back here sensitive. There's no armor at all. This is all either engine or propellants or ammunition storage. This is probably just a hinge right here, and this is a door that goes straight up and accesses all the ammunition storage and stuff like that. Clan mechs that were made in the very beginning were made to be easy to fix, easy to store, easy to reload. These mechs were not made like Innisphere mechs were and Star League mechs were. These mechs were made to last. These mechs had to be brought back to the garage and had to be repaired. They could not be left behind. They could not be blown up. Under no circumstance could this mech ever be blown up, ever, because they can't afford to make another one. The clans tried their very best to keep the mechs going, to keep the parts fresh and keep them going. They tried to make, instead of making more variants, they built up on their existing mechs and made them better over the years. For example, the original Timberwolf that they had back in the Star League days. Like I said, you guys before, the big long arms that went out to here with the Stalker chassis. These Timberwolves that they used during the time of Star Leagues, those mechs were the most common. Those and Atlases were the most common mechs to be used during the time of Star Leagues. And oddly enough, they do not have the Timberwolf in this game, which I find very, very odd. Actually, they do. Yeah, they do actually have the Timberwolf. I looked at that. I didn't think, yeah. This is a Timberwolf. This was created during the time of Star Leagues. The same time Alice was created, this was created as well. The Atlas, the Timberwolf, and the Kid Fox and the Gemini, all created during the time of Star Leagues. And only then. They were one of the original Star League mechs. The Timberwolves were probably the most prevalent Star League mechs to ever be used. Now, when the houses were created, when the Star League disbanded, the technology for this mech was trashed because the parts that were used, that was made at the time by the territory that is now occupied by House Davenport. This was made by House Davenport. This was made by, at the time, Free Rossalon. And these are manufactured by a fixed Steiner. So the Timberwolf was a combination of a bunch of the houses getting together to build one mech. So naturally, the clans did not, when the clans first started, they did not have the technology to duplicate any of this. They didn't have any technology to duplicate anything. All they can do is get a hold of the old mechs and use parts off the old mechs. That's it. That's all they had tech for. So they did the best they could with what they had. So they took the Timberwolf and they looked at it and said, how can we make this our own mech? Yes, we have this mech from the Star League days, but if this mech breaks, we cannot repair new parts. We cannot replace it with new parts because it's not compatible. What do we do? Well, one guy probably said, I have an idea. What if we create an entirely new mech, based off of that we can make our own parts for? So the Mad Cat Mark II was created based off of this design. This original Star League mech could not be created by the clans because they did not have the technology to create parts like this. This was only Innisphere technology. At the time, it was Star League technology. But that Star League, the Star League technology was primarily Innisphere because there was no clans back then. It was all Star League was all made up of Innisphere territories. And the clans at the time were living amongst the Innisphere. And all of them were getting along together. So they all of them had Innisphere technology on them. So when they left, when the clans left the Star League, they took all the old Star League mechs with them. That the great houses did not want the old Star League mechs, so they just let them have it. So if you want to go to another star system and live in peace, and take these old, you want to take these old Star League mechs off our hands, go right ahead, have fun. So they did. So they got a couple of Timberwolves and they got a couple of other stuff, and they just created their own. And later on, they started making new stuff. They started making a lot of stuff actually. I mean, they started making. My God, they made. For example, Gargoyle. The Gargoyle was made. The reason why the Gargoyle was made. The Gargoyle was made to counterattack Katrina Steiner's Atlas. You're probably finding it hard to believe this is supposed to be the Clan's version of the Atlas. This is supposed to be kind of like the Atlas 2C. Even though they never got their hands on the Atlas, this was their version of an Atlas. Now, nothing can be like an Atlas. And the Wolf Dragoons, when the Star League disbanded, the Wolf Dragoons was forced to give up. The Wolf Dragoons were forced to give up all their Atlases, and all the members that were driving Atlases, they refused to give up their mechs. Want to go over the clans. They were captured, and the mech was taken away from them. So no Atlases ever got in the hands of clans. Katrina Steiner made sure of that. Under no condition was one Atlas ever transferred to clans, ever, in the history of MechWarrior. Not Star League, MechWarrior. Not one clan member ever got their hands on an Atlas, ever. The reason why is because Katrina Steiner has a self-destruct sequence in the mech. If the mech ever is beyond repair, they simply eject, self-destruct, this thing explodes into a million pieces, and you can't capture it because it's non-repairable. You don't even know what it is. You blow that mech up, they can't capture it. So the gargoyle was as close to an Atlas as you can get. So this was a clan version of an Atlas. It's not the same thing, but it's gonna have to do. So they tried. They tried their best. The only good thing about clan mechs, I will say, that I do like about clan mechs, and we'll show you the one thing I like about clan mechs. Let's pick up a summoner. Let's pick up Star League summoner. All right, let's get a mech from the Star League. Okay, now the difference between a clan mech and a sphere mech. Sphere mechs have variants, so to speak, right? Where that mech has a variant. This is the mech. This is the variant of the mech. Okay? Now that variant has different things that it can carry in it. It can carry a certain amount of ballistics, it can carry a certain amount of anti-missile systems, a certain amount of lasers. It has what's called hard points. And hard point is the amount of weapons. A hard point is the amount of weapons you can place in that arm. Now, clan mechs have the ability. Mechs are only made by clans. They're thicker, they're meatier, and they're beefier. And they have the ability to... Clan mechs can be taken apart and put back together. For example, on clan mechs, you can remove parts of the arm to create different hard points. For example, right here, this right here, this is called a hard point. Now, Innisphere does not have these. These decide what you can put in here. If you want all missiles, you have to change the hard point. You have to change what's called omnipods. Clan has invented something called omnipods. They loved the Innisphere mechs, but they hated the fact that you couldn't customize your favorite mechs. So clanners invented something called omnipods. Now omnipods allow you to put hard points in specific areas of the body. For example, certain heads. For example, left arm. Left arm of the summoner. You could have one hard point with 2 missiles. Another hard point with 1 ballistic. You could have another hard point that has 2 energy weapons in it. Another hard point has 1 energy weapon in it and 1 ballistic. Another hard point has only 1 energy, and that's it. Another hard point has 1 ballistic, and that's it. So I mean, you could actually purchase and then equip that hard point on that particular arm and completely change the variant of that mech without getting rid of your favorite mech. Clans became more versatile. The clanners didn't like having mechs built a certain way, and that's it. Clanners wanted to customize their mechs. Clanners wanted to make things easier for themselves to manufacture down the road. So clan mechs only were able to have what's called omnipods. Those omnipods allowed you to change the hard points in that particular part. I always found it very interesting the fact that the clans came up with this technique and Innisphere never did. I always found that very interesting, and I always felt jealous that the clans had this technology, because I always felt as though when you're playing Innisphere, you're at an immediate disadvantage, because if God forbid you ever want to play the same mech, instead of buying all the omnipods for all the parts, you can switch it around whenever you feel like it. So instead of having one mech, all the weapons you need and all the omnipods you want, you have to buy 15 mechs of the same type just to get different variants. It's horrible. It's a money waster. Being in the Innisphere is a money waste. When I first started, I was a clanner in when I first started this game, I was in beta testing. I was a clanner in Clan Wolf, and I said that. Also, when the clan started during the time of Star League, so Star League didn't have omnipods. The Star League had mechs like the Innisphere has right now. Now, the Star League built their mechs exactly the way they have them right now, or the way Innisphere has them right now. The mech was built specifically to have that in it, and only that. That made it lighter and was able to hold more weapons in it. Now, clan mechs are heavier, so they can't hold big weapons in them. They have to hold smaller weapons and smaller ammunition. But you can change the type of weapons that you have in there by simply switching out the internal omnipods. It was a genius idea, but it made it heavier. And by making it heavier, you're making it slower, therefore adding a bigger engine. So instead of having an XL 160 engine in there, you're forced to toss in a 360 engine in there. This engine has a 360 in it. This has an XL 360. My Atlas has an XL 150. And this summoner is slower than my Atlas. So my engine is much smaller. My Atlas is faster than this mech. And this has a bigger engine. Go figure. This mech is 15 times heavier than the Atlas. Why? Because this has omnipods in it. That's why. All the weight of these omnipods are pushing down on the mech. So you're forced to put in less. Because you have omnipods in every single part, you're forced to take less objects in the mech. This is one of the main reasons why clan mechs are at an extreme disadvantage to Innisphere mechs. Because of those omnipods. Although they are very, very, very handy, and I love them. I hate the fact that you can't put those gigantic Innisphere guns in them. Like you in Innisphere, you have these gigantic guns. You can toss in there. For example, in Innisphere has what's called the Thunderbolts. I never used them, but the Thunderbolts are insanely heavy. They really are. They're absolutely insanity. They are so heavy, the Thunderbolts. Let's see if I can find a mech I can toss a Thunderbolt in. Let's see. Let me find a mech and toss a Thunderbolt in and show you guys how heavy it is. How about this one? This one works. This will work nicely. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Missile. Here we go. Okay. 7 tons. For Thunderbolt 10, it's 7 tons. Now think about this for a minute. It takes 1 hard point, but it's 2 hard points, but it's 7 tons. Now, an LRM-5, 2 hard points, 3 tons. Okay, but this is a Thunderbolt 10. How about LRM 10? Okay, three hard points, 6 tons. This takes an extra hard point, but it's 1 ton less. And an LRM 10 flies at a longer range. It doesn't hit as hard, but it flies at a longer range. Thunderbolts are like medium-range missiles. There's one reason why MRMs are not used for a lot in this game, because Thunderbolts are better than medium-range missiles. Thunderbolts are medium-range missiles that pack a harder punch. But they take up so much less. Medium-range missiles take up less space. Medium-range missiles take up less space, less slots. Thunderbolts take up more slots. Thunderbolt missiles are heavier and they take up more slots, but they hit a hell of a lot harder. Both medium-range missiles and Thunderbolts have the same range. Thunderbolts hit harder. Medium-range missiles don't hit as hard, but they take up less space. So if you need a medium-range missile that hits like a dump truck, you're going to pick Thunderbolts. If you want a medium-range missile that doesn't take up a lot of space, use MRMs. That's the difference between medium-range missiles and Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts are medium-range missiles. The only difference is that they're thicker, bigger, and they hit twice as hard. It's like having a mini nuke strapped to your neck. It's insane. The one thing I don't like about Thunderbolts, you have to have a targeting computer. My suggestion, if you're having a mech and you want to put a Thunderbolt in it, I have a big suggestion for you guys, and I suggest you take it. Make sure you put advanced sensor package in there, okay? That's step 1. Then make sure you put targeting computers, Mark 7 or Mark 8. Okay guys? Make sure you put the targeting computer Mark 7, Mark 8, and the advanced sensor package. Then put the Thunderbolts, full of ammo. You're done. That's how you set up Thunderbolts in your mech. Thunderbolts are point and shoot and pray. But if you have a really good targeting computer, it will turn those Thunderbolts into homing missiles. You see, the way this game in particular works. Missiles do not hone in on targets very well. If you're standing by like a mountain, right? You're standing in the mountains right here. You're standing right here. Someone fires a missile at you. If they have a normal missile with no homing abilities, as soon as you do this, the missile will just aim. The missile will lock on you. As soon as you move, the missile will just go straight this way. Now, if you add Artemis to it, the missile will go this way behind the wall and hit you. Now, if you have a normal missile, because you have a Mark 7 targeting computer, it turns that missile into a homing missile, and it'll go back past the wall, dig a turn, and hit your target. It enables you to take having a better targeting computer enables that missile to hone in on a target and hit it automatically. It turns a normal missile into a homing missile. So if you don't need LRM with Artemis. If you have an LRM with Artemis, you don't need a tier 9 targeting computer. A Mark 1 targeting computer is more than that. If you have an LRM mode, you have an LRM 10 Artemis, you should only really have a Mark 1 target. That's all you need. That's all you really need. If you have any long-range missiles at all, you should always have at least a Mark 1 target. If you have Thunderbolts, you have no choice. You have to have a Mark 7 or a Mark 8 target computer on that. Why? Because Thunderbolts are point and shoot weapons. They do not have homing capabilities. And they hit like a goddamn dump truck. If that bitch hits something, regardless, that son of a bitch is dead. I mean, it's going right through them. It's going to blow them to smithereens. It's like throwing a nuke at somebody's face. It's insane. Thunderbolts are meant to blow shit up in one shot. So naturally, if you're gonna lock on something, you want it to hit. Something that big, you want that bitch to hit them and kill them instantly. Thunderbolts can do that. The only problem is they're so goddamn slow and they don't have any lock-on capabilities at all. But if the better your targeting computer is, the more it will give that weapon the targeting skills it needs to reach the target. Your targeting computer will tell that missile where to go and when to go. That's the purpose of having a targeting computer. So if you have missiles, now keep in mind this only works for medium range missiles. This only works for MRMs, Thunderbolts, and long range missiles. Short range SRMs and short streaks, targeting computers are useless. Why? Because they're too short. SRMs and short streaks are mainly meant short range point and shoot. That's it. Really quick firing weapons. I mean, no, you're basically not in any grave danger when you have a short range missile. You only put SRMs on things like fleas. You put them on urban mechs. You put them on, well, not urban mechs. Urban mechs are too slow. You'll put them on things like fleas. You'll put them on Orions. You'll put them on small mechs. Very small mechs with very small chassis with not a lot of room for big weapon systems like this. You can't afford to toss a target computer in there. Too much weight. And that's you're gonna have missiles, ammo, one laser, that's it. So naturally, these should only be used for the MRMs, Thunderbolts, and LRMs. If you're using Thunderbolts, you're only allowed to use Mark 7 and Mark 8 targeting computers. I'm telling you right now, if you use anything less than those, or didn't use anything at all, the Thunderbolts will do dick shit. Okay, looks like our time is pretty much up because our little friend's letting us know. Thank you. Our little friend's letting us know that we're running out of time. So, looks like we're running out of time. So, okay, guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you all take some stuff that I said tonight and hopefully use it to your advantage. Hopefully you found some of the stuff I explained to you guys interesting and helpful and informative as well. I figured I'd take a lot of my information and just figured I'd just give it to you guys. I figured it might come in handy. I gathered so much of this information from between the BattleTech universe and the MechWarrior universe. I gathered all the information together and somehow came up with all this, and I went, you know what? Let's see if it works for the game. And sure enough, when I beta tested it, it worked. So all the original stuff I learned from all the way back in the old days, all still pertains, still works. Everything I explained to you today still works in this game. All of it works. There's no difference between the BattleTech universe and the original MechWarrior and the original MechWarrior storyline and this game. The only thing that's different is the storyline. This game has a storyline where it's about a long time after the fall of the Star League, when the clans are in the place they want to be, but now they're getting antsy and they want to come back, but they don't want to disband their clans. So therefore, they're invading the Innisphere to get their own space within the Innisphere. In other words, the clan do not want to live on their own star system anymore. They want to live in the same place they used to live a long time ago. They want to be part of Star League again, but the houses refuse to give up their space. The houses refuse to give up their space that they earned, space that belongs to them. When Star League was around, all the house's space was given up and shared among all the rest of them. So, in other words, all the houses it was all one gigantic territory. So the map wasn't divided amongst houses. Terra was the capital of Star League. That big planet in the middle of the map, that was the capital of Star League. The capital of Star League was right here. All this was Star League's territory. These houses existed exactly the way they were, and their original territories existed, but it did not show up on a map. It was just Star League and Terra, and the rest of the map was there with all the planets, and that's it. These houses did not exist. They existed in name only, and their original territories stayed there in name only, but they weren't official anymore. The Star League was considered like the United States of America. It was one country. Star League is like the United States of America. Right now, what we have right here is kind of like Europe. If the Star League is the United States of America, then Terra is Washington, D.C. That's what the clanners are trying to do. Now, what we're looking at right now, this is Europe. Right now, you have different countries within Europe, and you have outsiders that want to take over these different sections of the countries. They want to restore everything back the way it was. For example, with the clan wars, let me give you an example. Russia's invading Ukraine, correct? Why is Russia invading Ukraine? Why? Why? Because Russia is trying to recreate the Soviet Union back the way it used to be. And then their main goal is to recreate the Russian Republic. That's a final goal. The Russian Republic is pretty much huge. It's a huge territory. Gigantic. Absolutely fucking gigantic. They will never accomplish that, ever. After the fall of the Tsars, they gave up so much territory. And in the fall of the Soviet Union, they gave up even more territory. And what they have now is big. What they had before was gigantic. But that was Putin's main goal. To get all the Russian Republic's territory back under his control. He's a dictator. What we have right here are individual countries coexisting as one entity together. What we have right here is kind of like it's kind of like Europe right now. They all coexist together as a whole, and they all come to each other's aid. So if one country in Europe is in danger, it's kind of like this is the EU, right? This is considered the EU. These great houses. These are the EU. If somebody invades, all of them come to their aid as best as they can. This has nothing to do with NATO, nothing to do with US. We're talking Europe right now, okay? Now the Star League was like the United States is right now. The clans are trying to get this area, to be like the US is right now. That's why the clans are taking over the space. They want to make sure that they take over. If the clans are able to take over one entire house, if they're able to take all the territory from one house away from them and capture Terra, then the next step if any clan is able to take over, if any clan is able to take over any planet right next to Terra, they have that right to invade this. If they invade this, all the houses have to respond. They have no choice, and they have to defend this planet from the clans. Because if the clans take this over, the Star League is back initiated again. So all the houses lose their territories. The Star League is back again. That's the main goal of this game. That's the main goal of the clans. That's what they're trying to do. That's why there's a constant war going on between the clans and the Innisphere. Because the Innisphere doesn't want the Star League back again. The clans do. So they're willing to fight for it to get it back again. So there's good and bad ways to think about this. If you're a geek or a nerd like I am, and you've read enough of the books and novels like I did, you'll find this very interesting. And it really kind of is. I mean, it has nothing to do with gameplay or anything like that. Anything. This has to do with the books, the storyline. When you really think about it, this is actually the most historically accurate to the BattleTech universe that I've ever seen. Microsoft has created games that said MechWarrior. Yes, fine. But it wasn't historically accurate to the BattleTech universe. The only historically accurate video game that's been created that's exactly historically accurate to the BattleTech universe is this game right here. MechWarrior Online is the only BattleTech historically accurate game ever created. All the other games were MechWarrior games only and had nothing to do with the BattleTech universe. This was dragged directly from the BattleTech universe. All of this here is dragged right from the BattleTech universe, right to a video game. It had to be. Because you're doing clan wars, taking over territories, this is part of the story. This is part of the storyline. So, you really have to think really hard about this. It's very, very important. So, okay guys, it's getting late and I still have to upload this gigantic video. So, please take a minute to like and subscribe to the channel if you can. And if you can, please comment down below. I really appreciate all of your feedback. I didn't get a chance to do any gameplay because I wanted to really touch base on some of the logistics. And I wanted to touch base on some of the history of BattleTech. People have mentioned to me BattleTech versus MechWarrior. What's the difference? Well, that's what I explained today. The difference between BattleTech And MechWarrior is not all that much different. It's a matter of where in the storyline do you want to be. Do you want to be within the Star League before the wars, or do you want to be deep in the clan wars? Deep in the clan wars is MechWarrior. Before the clan wars, that's BattleTech. That's BattleTech is during the time of the Star League. So BattleTech is during the time of Star League. MechWarrior is during the time of Innisphere versus Clan, after Star League fell. So the two are pretty much the same entity, with different timelines. So the two of them don't merge together. They're continuations. So BattleTech happened first. When BattleTech's storyline ended, MechWarrior began. So the two games are not separate. The two games are linked together, but they don't blend. They're one right after the other. It's a storyline. So this, by playing this game, you're creating a storyline based off of. You're still creating a storyline that never actually was written. Novels were never written about MechWarrior. MechWarrior was only made for video games, and that's it. The only game that was made for BattleTech was, I think they made a game for DOS. It sucked. I saw it. It sucked. It said BattleTech, but honestly, it didn't look anything like what it was supposed to. It just looked like a square. It was hard. They tried. For the technology they had at the time, they tried. The closest thing they had to BattleTech was with the original MechWarrior game before it placed the original Sony PlayStation. That was the first ever game. The first ever BattleTech ready game. Where they didn't have it was just a generalized mech fighting game. There was no clan, there was no Innisphere. It was just Star League mechs, and they're all fighting each other for fun. And that's it. It was just a fighting game, and that's it. There was no storylines or nothing. The reason why is because that game took place on Slayer 7. And those are just Slayer 7 versus that. So that's all it was. So the original PlayStation game, the MechWarrior PlayStation game, was period correct. Why? Because FASA made that game. It had to be period correct. That was the continuation storyline of. So it's the first continuation storyline after the BattleTech universe stopped. If you really honestly think about it, it's pretty interesting. So, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Please comment down below if you found this interesting. Please comment and comment about how much you found this interesting. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them down below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or comments you have down below. If you want to see more stuff exactly like this, more about the storylines and stuff like that, I'm more than happy to share my information with you guys. I read every single novel on BattleTech back in the old days. I'd be more than happy to share that knowledge with you guys, because I have some knowledge in me, but I will only share what I know for sure is I read correctly. So tonight I went over quite a bit. So Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. And thank you very much for watching. See you later, guys. Don't forget Sunday, 7 or 8 p.m. Central Time. We'll be live on PlayStation Network. Join me then. See you guys later.